White House Chronicle is produced in collaboration with WHUT, Howard University Television. And now, the program host, nationally syndicated columnist Llewellyn King, and co-host Linda Gasparello.
Hello again, and thank you so much for coming along. I promised you a special guest, and he is Marvin Fertel of the Nuclear Energy Institute, devoted to the purposes of developing civilian nuclear power for general enhancement of mankind, and along the way, other things, medicines, all of the peripherals, which are maybe even more important than the central power generation. You've been CEO and president of this organization for a little over a year now. Do you feel any differently, having seen it from the top, than you did when you were a soldier in the ranks?
Yeah, a bit, Llewellyn, in that one of the things I found is that...
Money's better, I hope.
Well, the money is better, yeah.
Good.
I'm not sure my time allotment is any better, but the money is better. One of the things I'm finding I do an awful lot more in this job is deal with our friends in Congress and in the administration, as opposed to my friends in the industry and at the plants. And that's a change for me, and it's probably a good change.
Where do we stand in the civilian nuclear power races? We've heard for years that France is 80%, that Japan is growing, that South Korea is growing. Now I hear China is in, as no other country has ever been in its passion to build nuclear power plants.
Yeah, China is certainly, Chinese National Nuclear Corporation just made a commitment to spend $120 billion over the next 10 years building plants. They are clearly the most rapid.
They have 24 under construction even as we speak.
They do, and some of them are our designs from Westinghouse that they have under construction. But just to go back to your question about our program, as you said when you introduced me, I'm very proud of our program. We only get 20% of our electricity in America from nuclear, and as you said, France gets much more. Japan even gets more than us. But our program is bigger than France and Japan's combined.
But we aren't building, we're building, I know of, one new nuclear...
Two. We have two projects going, one in Georgia and one in South Carolina.
Okay. That's not 24 like China. It's very modest.
We will be going forward modestly. First of all, we were certainly hurt by the recession on the demand for electricity. And to be honest, in our country, it's hard to build anything anywhere. You were talking about skyscrapers and bridges. And it's even hard to do those in most places. I think what you're going to see, all the studies everybody has done is they were looking at climate legislation and energy legislation, says if you want an 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050, you have to greatly expand nuclear. That doesn't mean you don't do efficiency, you don't do renewables, but you'll expand our nuclear program.
Isn't there a tendency in what you just said, you've got to expand renewables, efficiency, etc. Doesn't that in some way detract from your central message? For years, the nuclear power people have not been able to say this is better than coal, because the utilities, their members, your members, burn coal and now natural gas. Isn't this a little bit like saying Gimbel's and Macy's, two great stores, shop at one of them?
Well, I think we play different roles. Nuclear strength is we operate 24/7, 365 days a year with a lot of electricity. Renewables are intermittent. They do play a role on the grid, and they clearly have a lot of political support in our country. I think what we're going to build in the near term, in all honesty, is the nuclear plants we have going, and then we're going to see a lot of gas right now.
And we should explain gas. Natural gas is very cheap these days, and there's a machine that came along in the last 20 years, really, called the aeroderivative turbine, which is in fact a jet engine on the ground that achieves enormous efficiencies burning natural gas and about half the emissions of coal plant. Yeah. And so technology has sort of sideswiped you there, hasn't it?
Both on the production of natural gas and on the machine
also, they're
efficiency.
Easier to site. Yeah. You could, in theory, put one under this building.
Yeah. Now, again, our honest feeling, and I think the feeling of the companies, is that has changed how fast some plants go in the near term. It hasn't changed the long-term outlook in America. I think what hurts in the near term is what you said about China, which is true. It's hard for us to rebuild our manufacturing infrastructure as fast if we're not building as much?
Well, you know, we're going to face some very awkward minutes ahead in our national life. For example, the day that some country other than us has men walking on the moon. It's going to be a terrible day in America. It's going to be just a sense of we've lost our way, we don't have what we used to have, what happened? If we suddenly see the whole world, or all of the emerging world, the competitive world, it's not merging anymore, it's the competitive world. That's China, India, to a lesser extent South Korea, and Japan, which is probably still there, but having its own difficulties. The competitive world running ahead of us. And we're going to say, why didn't we do these things? And it's very hard probably to explain. Why, for example, Marv, is it that we have a nuclear navy second to none on Earth with wonderful aircraft carriers, submarines, etc.? Why can't we transfer our enthusiasm for that for making electricity? It's a lot safer to have these reactors in one place rather than floating around the oceans.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Will. And I think one of the reasons is that the public and policymakers actually understand what a nuclear navy does. It provides national security. I don't think the public in general appreciates the value of electricity. When we've done focus groups and we ask where does electricity come from, the two most dominant answers are the switch and the outlet. So,
really?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
Really.
That's extraordinary.
So, you know, when you think about it, one of the things that I think we need to do, in my mind, electricity is the lifeblood of the economy and critical to our quality of life.
Well, we live in an electric cocoon.
Absolutely.
Every minute of every day we are surrounded with some electric appliance lighting us, cooling us, entertaining us. All of the great revolution in IT requires a plug somewhere.
You know, and your comment about sort of the conundrum on nuclear, because our companies also use coal and gas and everything else. We did advertising a number of years back, and the concern was we were talking about how environmentally friendly nuclear is from an air emissions, none. And the companies were concerned that would hurt coal. So we did some testing. We found it didn't hurt coal because people didn't appreciate we even produced electricity with coal, let alone nuclear. So I think that one of the differences between the nuclear navy and nuclear power plants right now is not a safety issue, it's not a value issue, it's an appreciation of the value by the public and others. And that's something we're working on.